Welcome. I'm Joan Sladek from JS Horsemanship. I'm an Art2Ride Associate Trainer. I'm here today with my wonderful student Beth and her horse Zip to work on in-hand work. So today we're going to be doing an introduction to in-hand work. And in-hand work can be kind of a challenging thing if you've never done it before. So we're hoping today to make this a little bit easier for those of you who are just getting started with it. In-hand work is our foundational work to everything else we're going to do with our horse. So we do in-hand work before we do lunging and before we ride our horse. All right, so we're going to get started with this. To start off today, I'm going to demo how to do it, and then I'm going to have you, I'll do a question and answer session, and then I'll have you try it. So
okay.
To start,
the right whip?
Yes, yeah. So to start in hand work, we want to have a dressage whip. We've got our horse in a bridle here. Zip is in. Is he in a just a regular loose ring snaffle, or is he in a French link?
French link.
He's in a French link loose ring. Okay. So I'm going to walk Zip up a little closer to the camera here, Beth, so that I can turn him and show people my hand position here. So I'm just going to turn Zip to the side. So when we do in-hand work, we're working at our horse's shoulder here. And, good boy. And before we start with this, we want to make sure that we have, our horse is not afraid of our whip that we're going to be using. So I'm just going to start off by checking to make sure I can rub Zip with this whip. So I'm standing, I'm turning towards his shoulder. I'm holding with my left hand, so if he moves away from me, he moves around me, okay? So if he spooks or is worried about this whip, he's going to be able to yield away from me there. So I'm going to rub him with my right hand, just make sure he's comfortable. Good. Okay, so my position is going to be my outside rein. I'm going to take with my right hand and put my hand facing forward like so. I'm going to put it towards my horse's ear. And I'm going to put my thumb, my whip here between my thumb and my pointer finger, like so. So this is kind of an awkward position as we, if we've never handled our whip like this, it'd be more comfortable for us to probably hold our whip in this position with it facing down. But in this position, I can accidentally hit my horse as I'm working him. So to avoid hitting him when I don't want to, I'm going to put my whip in this position. Okay, so when it's in this position, you can see that's up off the horse. I can turn my wrist down and touch him where my leg would go, or I can touch him a little further back if I need to, and then I can turn my thumb back out again and have a complete release of that pressure. Now with my left hand, which is going to be the hand that's directing him here, I've got my thumb facing up. This is going to allow my shoulder to stay straight. So it's really important. If I have my palm or so I have my thumb up with my palm up, right, like I'm riding. If I have my knuckles facing up like this, you can see how my shoulder's turned. So when I go to pull, the horse can rotate. If he were to pull down or something, he can rotate my shoulder in the socket, and that can make it pretty uncomfortable for me. And also, I'm just not very effective with my hand in this position. So I want to keep my thumb up like this so that my shoulder, I can relax my shoulder down and it's straight. The other important thing as we go to work in hand work in our position is that I can stand independent of my horse. So I want to pretend like there's this imaginary wall between my horse and I, okay? And as I'm working him, I want to, make sure he's yielding away from that wall and I'm staying on the other side of it. The things I really want to avoid doing in hand work is leaning on my horse. I want to make sure I don't push against him with my right hand. I don't push him over. And I don't end up crowding his space. When we're working with horses in hand, we're very close to them, so it's really easy to end up too much leaning on the horse or for him to end up leaning on us, right? So I want to have my imaginary wall there. So to start him off, the first thing I want to do is establish a good walk. So Beth, I'm going to have you come here to my left shoulder because I'm going to ask Zip to walk forward. I'm going to take my right hand, tip my whip down, tap Zip till he takes a step forward. It's important that he takes the first step because in hand work we're driving our horse as opposed to leading him. So it's just like riding. We want to make sure that he's the one initiating the movement. And then I'm just going to walk with him here. Okay, once I have a good walk established, the next thing that I'm going to do is ask Zip to move laterally away from me. So to do that, I'm going to take my right hand and move it down, and my left hand and move it up. So as we walk across here, I'm going to turn so the camera can see what I'm doing. I'm going to bring my right hand down, my left hand up a little bit, might tap zip a little bit to get this inside hind a little more active and a little more underneath him. As he steps it under and moves over, I want to feel that he then seeks more out to my left hand, like so. Okay, so as he seeks out, I'm going to release him and let him take that contact down. If he slows down, I'm going to send him forward again. Pick him up again, step him back out, send him forward. Good boy. All right, there we go. So this is what we're looking for. The zip starts to walk a little bit more independent of me, and that he starts to stretch out to that contact. So we're looking for the longest stride possible without speed. So we're looking for zip to reach without running. Good boy. Okay, so once we've gotten him to stretch down and accept this, I'm going to go ahead and ask for a stop. So to ask for a stop, I'm going to bring my right hand down, my left hand up. Release him when he comes to a stop by bringing my right hand back up again. Okay. So Beth, do you have any questions before we get started?
Yes. When we're walking, are you walking forward or next with him?
Oh, okay, yeah. So that's a good question. Yeah. So when I'm walking him, my neutral position when I'm walking straight is like this. I've got my belly button facing forward. When I want him to move away from me, when I want to move laterally, I turn slightly towards him like this. Okay. So I'm turning towards the point of his shoulder. So, you know, turning in this position allows me two benefits. One, I'm able to keep my arms straight, and I'm able to kind of have a visual block for the horse that he can't pass. And I'm also in a position where I can see if that inside hind is really stepping under. When I'm in this position, I'm not going to be able to see if the inside hind is stepping under as much, but I can feel if he's seeking out, right? And so just anytime we're working him, anytime his head goes up or we feel like he's really tense or he's rushing, he's running faster than us, it's because the hind is not active enough. So anytime that we're feeling like the horse is doing anything other than stretching and relaxing, his hind is not active enough, and we would go back and ask him to move laterally and go forward.
Are your hands having any control over his head going up or down, or are you are you asking with the reins at all?
Other than moving him laterally, no. Okay. So I'm not trying to pull his head down, and that's really important. As we go to do this work, we want to make sure that our engagement is coming from behind forward, and that's really, really key. Because if I were to pull Zip's head down and get him to put his head down to the ground and focus on that, it doesn't necessarily mean that he'll be engaging forward from behind, that he'll be pushing off. And it's the act of getting the inside hind under and pushing off. The natural response of that is for the horse to drop his head and stretch out. So it's really important that that comes from him coming under. So that in the long term, when I get on him and I put my leg on, he's like, oh, she means push a little bit more underneath and seek out. If I teach him that when I pick up the rein, it means just put his head down, I could have a horse that has his hip completely kicked out and his head down to the ground. So that's a great question, yeah.
So it's the back end that's making this happen.
It's the back end that's making this happen, exactly, yes. And it's also why I don't worry about if Zip's not totally consistent in doing it yet. We just keep, working him until he, keep asking him to move laterally until he relaxes and stretches out. So if you're feeling like, he only goes a few steps and he pops up again, that's okay, especially as we start this work.
So can you ask for lateral movement at any time?
You can ask for lateral movement at any time, yes.
Okay.
Yes, and as we start doing this work here, I'm going to have you walk around me in a circle. Okay. And we're going to do that because we have our camera here and we want to make sure that I can see you. But normally you could do this anywhere in the ring. You could walk straight lines, you could walk him all around. If he was rushing and he was really fast in the work, walking in a circle can give you a little bit more ability to control the speed.
Okay.
But just be careful that you're not feeling like he's pushing on you as you go to walk this circle.
you have to have a saddle on to do it, or could you do it just with your bridle?
You could do it just with your bridle, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to have your saddle on. You just have it on because you're going to ride him afterwards, all right? Okay,
So open.
So you're going to start off, yep, your left hand, you're going to start with, yeah, very good. And so if you look here, the way Beth's holding her hand, she started off with her hand like this, with her thumb out. And then, yeah, you're just going to set it through there and close your fingers, and then you're going to turn your thumb up.
Okay.
Right? So we started in this position with our hand down, and then we just close our fingers, turn our thumb up. And you can feel how your shoulder is just nice and relaxed, and you've got a straight line out towards your bit. Now you're going to take with your right hand, exactly, we're going to shorten up your rein here.
So the outside line is as if you are riding the closed.
Yes.
Okay.
You want to keep contact on your outside.
Okay.
And you're going to, yep, you're going to put your fingers facing towards him, and you're going to put this between your pointer finger and your thumb like that.
Okay.
Yeah. And then that way, when you tap him, you're just going to turn your wrist down. Yep.
Okay.
And then back up to release.
Okay.
Very good.
And he moves first.
And he's going to take the first step, exactly. So you're just going to start off by tapping him. Yep. Now if he comes in towards you, you're going to walk into him. Yes, exactly. It's really important that he moves away from you. You don't move away from him.
Okay.
Very good. Nice.
So do I let the line slide through as he goes, stretches down?
Yes, as he stretches down, you're going to let the reins slide through. So right there, you're going to walk into him, and then, yep, and send him forward again. And right there, you're going to relax and let him take that contact out a little bit. Good. There he starts stepping in. Good.
How many steps over laterally, or does it just until he relaxes?
Just until you feel him start to relax. And it's important that when he's moving laterally, that he's also moving forward.
Okay.
So he's moving forward and over, because we want that inside hind to come forward underneath him. We want to make sure that he's not, he's not leaning in when you're moving him over, that he's really stepping that left hind under, and he's stepping it forward and underneath him.
He doesn't usually chew on the bit. Is that because he doesn't really know the lesson yet?
Yeah, it can be because he's a little worried. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we're doing handwork, horses are claustrophobic by nature. And what we're doing in handwork, we're very close to the horse, right? We're putting a lot of pressure on him. So it's not uncommon for him to be nervous as we start this work.
Okay.
And if he is, just think about when you release him, that you really relax and you give him, the more independent your space is, the more release of pressure you're giving him. So if he's feeling like you're hanging on him at all, it's going to feel like he's a lot more nervous. Whereas if you feel like you can really stand your own ground and stay relaxed, it's going to be easier for him to move over.
So if I feel like he's coming into my space, I just laterally.
Yep, and then send him
and
forward.
relax.
Yes, very good. Yeah, just like that. And there you can feel how he starts to stretch out a little bit more.
What's the difference between stretching and routine?
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. What's the difference between a horse that's stretching and a horse that's rooting? A horse that's rooting is on the forehand. So
Okay.
he's pulling his head down, and he's kind of kicking his hip out as he's doing that. So a horse that's stretching is really coming from behind. And the difference is it's going to feel very soft. Like right here, Zip is stretching there. Feel how he feels very soft in your hands? He doesn't feel like he's pulling on you. Yeah. When he's rooting, he's going to feel like he's pulling on you. Now, at the beginning of doing this work, if our horse if he were to root down, like there he's starting to root, you would send him forward.
Okay.
Because you need the hip to be more active. Right now, see how he immediately, as you sent him forward, he got lighter right away, right? So, and that's true if you're riding him too. If you're riding him and he pulls and he roots, you just send him forward. You don't try to pull his head up. You don't do anything with his head, because the freedom in the head comes from the activity behind. So we're never trying to fix the head by doing anything with it. We're always trying to fix the hind end. Very good.
Do you have your hands never touching the horse or the saddle? Are they alone?
You want to try to keep your hands from touching the horse or the saddle, yeah, because you don't want to lean on him. So you can bring your right hand down lower if you want to, yeah, but you don't want to push against him. So actually, that's a great question. If you wouldn't mind coming up here, we're going to offer the stop, and I'm just going to show that to the camera. So you're going to bring your right hand down, you're going to bring your left hand up and stop your feet. So yeah, and as we go to our stop, this is kind of one of those things that we think is kind of common sense, but it's really easy to forget. We want to make sure that we really stop.
Okay.
When we stop, that we really relax and stop. You know, sometimes we'll ask our horse to stop and we're still walking, right? So we want to make sure that we initiate the stop and then correct the horse and then release him. So to answer your question about where your hand can be, I'm going to turn zip a little bit here so that I can show the camera. So if where your hand is has to do with the height of your horse. And if I'm working I'm tall enough I could bring my hand all the way over with zip. And that would be nice because I have no pressure on him at all, right? Or I could bring it out here. But if I was working a really tall horse and I'm not, tall enough to get my hand up there, I still want to keep my hand off the horse. So I would bring it down, or if my shoulder's getting tired when I'm working him here, I'd bring my hand down and just keep it off of him like this, right? So when I want to shorten my outside rein, I would just slide it down like that, okay? And to release it, I bring it back up. So there I'm shortening my outside rein, there I'm releasing my outside rein. If I had my hand out here, I could shorten by bringing back a little bit and release by bringing forward, right? Okay. But when my hand is down, which this is going to be a position probably most people are going to work in because it's a little more comfortable for your shoulder, you're going to bring your right hand down and bring it back up again to release. So, very good. So do you feel comfortable trying this on the other side with him?
Yes. Will the horse be more able to do it from one direction, right or left? Is one stronger than the other?
Yeah, typically your horse is going to be better on one side than the other, just like we are. And we're going to have one side that's a little easier for us than the other side too, right? So yes, and that's something to think about when we go to working on organizing our hands and everything. Like for me, I'm right-eye dominant. So for me, going to the left is a little bit easier because I'm able to use my right hand to direct the horse, to send him forward. When I'm going the other direction, it's a little bit harder for me because I have to use my left hand. Yeah.
Would you do left for just because I'm not very coordinated left, and then I'll try after you do it?
Sure. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. So I'm going to switch sides here then, and I'm going to turn him around so that the camera can see what we're doing. All right. Okay, so as I go to start this side, I'm going to start by making sure, I'm going to make sure he's okay with this, which he is. So some horses are really worried about this, and every time you switch sides, you might switch sides and you're going to pick up your whip and your horse is going to start to walk off. If he did that, you would just rub him until he stops. So same thing on this side. I'm going to put my whip through my thumb, my pointer finger like so, and I'm going to be using my wrist to cue my horse. All right, and then my right hand, I'm going to have my thumb facing up, like that, and I'm going to start by sending him forward. So I'm going to tap him until he takes a step forward. Good, and then I'm going to walk with him, and he's kind of walking into my space, so I'm going to walk in towards him and tap until he steps away. Good boy. There you go. That's it. Now let him take that contact out. Okay. Yeah, that's it.
And then my feet should go forward at this point when I'm not laterally moving him.
Yes, your feet should go forward. When you're not moving him laterally, you want to be walking straight with him.
Okay, and I feel like he's directing the path, so I'm going to lift up.
Yeah, excellent.
Send forward.
Yes, yes, and that's a really important point. If you feel like your horse is directing you instead of you directing him, you want to go in and establish where your line is. So it's important that you know where you're headed to, right?
Now, should I stay at his shoulder, or like if he's, like I feel like it's good here, can I keep my feet towards his head more, or should I stay back by the shoulder?
You want to stay near the shoulder. Okay. Now that brings up a really, really important point that I just want to say before we end, because this is looking really good. You don't want to end up behind the shoulder. Okay. So when you're doing this work, you never want to end up behind the shoulder, because if you're behind the shoulder, your horse is going to have to turn to look at you. Yeah. So once we get him to stretch out here, we'll stop, and I'll just show you that once, and then we'll end the session. You're going to send him a little more forward there. You're going to step him over. Make sure you don't lean on him. Send him, tap him with the whip there until he steps over. There you go. See how as you got that hip more active, he started to stretch down and seek out to you? Really good.
Okay, let me try to stop.
So
left hand down, this one up.
Good.
Okay, what were you going to show?
Okay, so when you're doing this work, you want to make sure that you stay at your horse's shoulder. If I end up back here behind his shoulder, he's going to have to turn to look at me, and he's going to lean on me. So it'd be kind of like if I was the horse and you were me, and you were back here, I would have to do that to look at you.
So
And
you
what?
would come in on me.
Yes, I'm going to lean on you, exactly. So if you end up too far back, your horse has to crowd you.
Right, okay.
So it's really important that we stay up by the shoulder so that our horse has the freedom to be independent.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Good.
Well, do you have any other questions before we end today?
No, I like this. I think he's going to do well with it.
Good. All right. Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much for being willing to participate with this. You know, Zip's been a wonderful student. You've been a wonderful student. And we hope this was a help to you guys out there as you're starting to learn in handwork. If you have any questions or comments, then, love to hear from you. Just leave them below, and we'll see you next time.